Welcome back, everybody, to episode 5 of the Strickly NFL podcast, hosted by the Strickland Podcast Network. I'm Kon. You guys know me and Geoff. Every week, we're over here. This week, to help us preview not only the Jets and Seahawks, we also have him here to preview a little bit of the Jets and Chiefs and some other stuff going around the league. My good friend now for a couple of years, Mr. Matt Nein at M99 on Twitter. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Doing okay. I'm a little worried about our game on Monday.
It'll be fine.
Yeah, so just before we hop into all the other stuff, I do want to get a reminder to everybody that the Strickland has on Instagram at thestrick.land. They have a YouTube at the Strickland. They also have a $6 Patreon tier, which gives you access to the Strickland Roll of Schwinn. And they have a $9 tier, which gives you access to the full podcast of this recording. In addition to our podcast being sponsored by BetOnline Sportsbook. BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs, where you get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and much more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place all of your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available right from your phone. So you head to the website, or you can just use your phone, sign up today, and get in on the action. Remember, if you use the promo code BELIEVE, capital BLEAV, you get 50% off on your welcome bonus, a match of your first deposit. So BetOnline, where the game starts. Any lines we reference in this podcast are from BetOnline. So, getting into the first topic of the day, we're going to talk a little bit about the Giants-Niners game. Very ugly game. I don't know if you guys saw the tweet that I put up from the Strickly NFL account pod. But I said, with Brandon Ayuk out, the Giants may cover. They still didn't cover. Ugly game. It wasn't great. The line didn't really hold up well. But I want to say there's still positives to take away. I'll let you guys get some thoughts in before I kind of, go on my little rant with the Giants. Whoever, Matt, Geoff, whoever wants to start.
Yeah, I'm going to let Matt lead it off.
I mean, I don't watch a lot of Giants football unless I'm specifically reviewing film for somebody. But I take away from the 49ers perspective is that there was a really good quote this morning that I saw from Good Football, I believe is a show. I forget her name, but she said that the Eagles are playing games and they're winning them, but the 49ers are playing games and they're just beating people. I mean, The 49ers right now are far and away the best team in the league. I mean, they picked up last year right where they left off, and they're rolling through people. So I don't know if that's necessarily an indictment on the Giants, be like, oh, your squad's bad. I just think, anybody who plays the 49ers is coming, up against a different animal.
Yeah, I think that's a great take. The 49ers, they crushed Pittsburgh in week 1. They're just, like Matt said, they're just rolling through everybody. I have a bit of a Giants hot take, and I'm curious what you think, Con. Is Daniel Jones the Giants' R.J. Barrett? The more I see him discussed, on Twitter, I don't mean that in even a negative way. I mean it from both sides. Because if you follow any R.J. Barrett discourse on Twitter, there are either the people who defend him no matter what, and
now I gotcha.
Nothing is RJ's fault ever. And he's just, he's obviously already good. And then he has his detractors who nothing he does is right, and he's terrible, and he'll never be good. And I see the way Daniel Jones is discussed by Giants fans, and it's so incredibly volatile to me. I don't get it because he's such an average quarterback right now. I'm not saying he can't be better or maybe he's not worse, but right now he's behind a pretty trashy offensive line, especially without Andrew Thomas. When you play a team like the 49ers, like Matt was just alluding to, there's really not too much he can control. And yet I hop on Twitter and it's either, oh, none of this is his fault. None of these throws matter because what is he supposed to do? His offensive line, 60% pressure rate, yada, yada. And then there are the other people who are just like, he sucks. He's never going to be good. We should trade him. This is a waste of time. And it's like, what are we even talking about here? There's just no nuance to it at all.
Yeah, I see a lot of that, man. When he missed that throw to Waller on the early third down right before halftime, which could have got them into field goal range maybe more if the throw was really clean. I went on Twitter after that, and people were like, Waller got both hands on the ball. You got to catch that. And I was thinking to myself, like, man, I know you guys are not about to make me one of DJ's biggest fans come on here and be like, shut up. Like, it's I don't want to say annoying because at the end of the day, like, we all root for our teams and, whichever way we choose. But to see people just do 180s on players who they were really hyping up in preseason and training camp, it's like Daniel Jones is not the only player being negatively affected by the line, right? Like, if you're Darren Waller, you don't know how the timing is going to be affected on your route because of, whether DJ has to scramble. You probably have that in the back of your mind. Like, if he's scrambling, I probably have to start getting into my scramble drill stuff, trying to follow him when he comes out of the pocket. So this is not like a thing where it's like bad line affects Daniel Jones, stops. Like, this affects everybody. This affects everybody from DJ to Waller to Paris Campbell to the play caller to the running back coach. Like, it affects everybody. So people need to stop with, just giving DJ pass after pass. There's stuff that you could look at, especially from Talking Giants. Great job over there with the film that Bobby Skinner does. DJ turned down numerous throws to Hyatt this week where they would have been 30, 40, potentially 50-yard gains. And again, probably an O-line issue because he can't anticipate, he can't stay in the pocket and just say, okay, he's going to get open right here. But, like, man, we paid you $40 million a season. And I hate using that, but when you just throw every excuse that Daniel Jones can possibly have, I just really don't like hearing it, man, because you can make an excuse for any player on this roster.
Going back to that one particular play, now keep in mind, I am not involved in the New York media. So this is from, like I said, told you guys before the show, I live in Alabama. So this is like an outsider's perspective, not a New York market, take or whatever. But Darren Waller's 6'6", and he did get both hands on the ball. But if he's having to struggle to even get two hands on the ball, it's a bad throw. And it really wasn't even a contested catch situation. It was a crossing route from the right side coming all the way to the left side. He had safety was like 2 yards literally behind him, not trailing, but behind his back. So
yeah,
you should have caught that. That throw should have been much easier than what it ended up being.
To bring it back to the film, I'm curious what both of you thought of the offensive line, because I feel like both teams we've talked about, like we've talked about specific players on the offensive line, Evan Neal and Mekhi Becton. And while the Giants line as a whole obviously struggled, I actually didn't think Neal was the biggest culprit like he was in previous weeks. So I'm curious to hear what you guys thought of him specifically as we talk about the line.
Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet with Neal. I think it was one of his better games against those high-level pass rushers, right? Like, Bosa got home. It wasn't on a play where he even had anything to do with Neal. It was on that play where Bellinger kind of got put in a really tough spot by Daboll. And it was the play at the edge of the line. I can't even properly describe it because it was a mess. But Bosa got home on that play, the one where he was sacked around the 1 yard line. And Evan Neal really didn't stand out to me, which is a good thing because usually he stands out for all the wrong reasons. It was even reflected in the PFF grades, right? Like, I think he graded out around like a 48, 49, which I can't believe I'm praising a 48, 49, but it was one of his better performances, like I said, against an upper echelon pass rusher. And that's all I'm going to take away from it. Like, you showed me that you didn't get absolutely cooked. And like, that's the best thing that I can say about it.
To be specific for you, his run block grade is a 58.4 on the season, and pass blocking is 36.9 on the season. It's good for 202.
Out of how many qualify?
What do you want it out of? We'll say 20%.
Okay.
Oh, just kidding. Nobody's played 20% yet.
Oh, good. But can you find the individual numbers for him for this game?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, San Francisco is a 36.5 for run block and 48.2 pass block.
Okay. Yeah. So I also saw that if you added up every pass block grade from left tackle to right guard, Evan Neal was like still double their combined grade, which means everybody else as
That's
a whole
not good.
scored like less than a 24. So really not good. Like like you said, I I know you said it was only a Neal question, Jeff, but I do want to talk about McKeithen a little, if that's okay. So Brian Dable came out today and announced if Andrew Thomas is healthy, the line is going to be Andrew Thomas, Ben Bredesen, John Michael Schmitz, Marcus McKeithen at right guard, and then Evan Neal, obviously, at right tackle. Marcus McKeithen, while he did fine, air quotes around fine in the run game, he has the same problems Evan Neal has at right tackle, but he just has them at guard. He's really slow out of his stance, which is something that I hope was just from not getting reps for the past year because he had a torn ACL. But I didn't like really what I saw, considering the fact that he had gotten game reps the week before against the Cardinals. And I'm not a fan of leaving him in there. I think Azudu, the job he did at left tackle was more than enough to earn him a start at right guard when Andrew Thomas comes back.
Yeah, I mean, you are very much the expert here, so I'm just going to, when it comes to this specific area, so all I can say is, I trust your rewatching the film and, just watching and rewatching that 49ers game in general. You definitely didn't get the sense that like, oh yeah, this is something you want to run back, and if what you're saying about his weaknesses at right guard are true and how they correlate with Evan Neal's weaknesses, that seems like it's going to be a pretty exploitable part of the line for defenses to kind of attack, which you don't really want, entire sides of line to share weaknesses.
Yeah, the saving grace for both of them is that like they're both pretty massive human beings, right? Like they'll be fine in their run game. But it's just discouraging, man. We can't like we talked last week with Schwinn about how a lot of these concepts that we ran against Arizona, you want to see them prove themselves time and time again against maybe not a Niners defense, but a Seahawks defense. Next coming weeks, we have the Dolphins and the Bills. So you want to see them be able to execute against those guys. And once you get to the Dolphins and the Bills, you have Christian Wilkins, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb coming against you. You got Gregory Rousseau. Potentially Von Miller's going to be back on top of Leonard Floyd and all these other guys. So the speed disadvantage that is going to be playing at that right side is not something that you can be comfortable with, man, especially with all of the kind of rollout bootlegs that we want to be doing. I mean, I'd like to be doing also some QB option, maybe QB power, different type of things like that. And I just don't think that's stuff that could be executed with that right side of the line.
I mean, I think that what Matt said about the San Francisco game is kind of, first of all, it's spot on, but it also makes you want to immediately look forward to the Seahawks game because at a certain point, it's like the Giants were without one of their best skill player and they're, one of their three most important players on their offense, and Andrew Thomas. How could anybody expect them on a short week to go in and compete against San Francisco? But at the end of the day, that game happened. They're 1-2, and their next three games are against Seattle, Buffalo, and Miami. Right? Is that?
Yeah.
So, like, let's be frank here. This next Monday night game could be the difference between 3-3 and 1-5. To start the season. Again, we said this before week 2. It almost feels like a must-win game. This is an incredibly important game. How do you guys feel like they match up against the Seahawks?
I'll let Matt take this one just because I got some updates about the Giants too that I want to share before I dive into it.
Well, as a Seahawks fan, this is a game that we should win. I feel like on paper, the way the teams have played through the first 3 weeks, like this is a game that would make sense for Seattle to win. But If you followed any Seahawks football since Pete Carroll got there, these are never the games that we win. We don't win. We do not win the games that we should win. We just win the games that we shouldn't win. I remember a couple years ago, man, what were we? We were like 9-0. I think it was in 2020, like 8-0, something like that. And you guys showed up in Seattle with Colt McCoy and just this ridiculous like starting skill group of nobodies, and ended up winning in a game that Russell Wilson just I think the Giants were the team that broke Seattle. They finally took away the deep ball that season, and he had no answers and got sacked like 6 or 7 times in that game. It was just a disaster. And then last year, Seattle handled the Giants pretty well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Seattle's biggest weakness is the same thing as it was last year. It's over the middle. Linebackers can't cover anybody. So Darren Waller running, crossers, Barkley screens, through line or whatever. It's going to be, assuming he plays. There's going to be a lot of opportunity there. I could definitely see it being really high scoring, and I could see it getting away from the Giants potentially if Seattle plays their best ball. I really don't see a scenario where the Giants blow out Seattle, but like I said, I think either Seattle's going to handle their business, or it'll be a really close game down to the wire where either team can win it. But Seattle's got a group of pass rushers now. In Uchenna Nwosu, you got Mafe, Daryl Taylor, Draymond Jones, Jaron Reed. Like, we got a bunch of guys that can really get after the quarterback. I think we had 7 sacks on Andy Dalton last week.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions win was super impressive. Like, a lot of people be like, oh, they came off, they just beat the Panthers, big deal. But beating Detroit in Detroit is an extremely impressive win. Like, Detroit could just easily be 3-0. I think Seattle's tough, and I think on offense especially, they're going to give the Giants problems unless the Giants front four can step it up in a way they really haven't so far this season. What about you, Kon?
Yeah, this kind of goes back to what we said the first couple episodes, right, where the Giants are probably one of the most, like maybe top 3 game script dependent teams. It's going to be the same case this week. If the Seahawks get ahead, like Matt said, Uchenna Nwosu, especially Jaron or Jaron, how do I say that?
Jaron Reed.
Jaron Reed and Draymond Jones, I think, are 2 of the most underrated pass rushing D tackles in football. They're like a baby Dex Lawrence and Leo Williams. They're that echelon of guys, and it's scary, man, because like we talked about, Dolphins following this game, Bills following that one. You're staring 1-5 in the face like a shotgun. Just like we said, you're staring 0-3 in the face if you lose to the Cardinals. Now you're staring 1-5 in the face. So the game script scares the shit out of me. But I will say, if we get up, I think we have as good a chance as the Seahawks do if this becomes a shootout. Like you said, that the Seahawks linebackers don't really cover over the middle. We have the same problem. It's funny, you guys got Julian Love now, who I was telling Geoff about this weekend.
I don't know why you guys don't like him. He's fun to watch.
He turned us.
He laid the hammer last week a few times. Like, he lays people out.
That's one thing I'll give him. Like, especially so he came into the league, right, as a boundary slot guy. For that archetype of player, he's not afraid to tackle, which is something we're really missing this year. Like, everybody is just putting their arm at an ankle and trying to make a tackle that way. Like, it's not happening, guys. Stop just going for fucking arm tackles. But yeah, he is a physical player. The only thing is he makes dumb plays when he's trying to go for the ball. That's what really irked me when he was here.
See, he's not playing safety for Seattle. They pulled him down into this nickelback linebacker hybrid role. Like, he's just like stepping in for Jamal Adams, who, by the way, will be active and starting next week or this weekend. He's kind of been doing what he does, about the old Cam Chancellor role, if you will, kind of down by the line of scrimmage, run blitzing here and so on and so forth. But yeah, no, he hits.
Matt, speaking of Cam Chancellor, just a little off topic here. I was at one of those games that the Seahawks won that I wish they didn't win, and that was the 2013 Super Bowl.
That was a fantastic game.
That was not a fantastic game, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. Being there in a Champ Bailey jersey was not enjoyable for me.
Yeah, that game was over real quick.
What's funny, I mean, we don't have to talk about it for more than 30 seconds, but what's funny about that game from a Broncos perspective is literally it was like the worst possible first quarter, but it went like safety, long Seahawks drive, field goal, 3-and-out, long Seahawks drive, field goal. So like there was like 14 minutes of Seahawks domination and it was 8-0 Seahawks. And me and my friend were just like, dude, it's a 1-score game. Like we're fine. This couldn't have gone any worse. And then boy, it got worse. I just
that might have been like
I think it was probably the Malcolm Smith pick six that really flipped the momentum. Like if it was neck and neck up to that point, that was the play that really just turned it all upside down.
I was still young when the Super Bowl was happening, right? You said
Are you
it was
implying
20...
you're not young now?
I mean, I am, but
he's just
I was even younger back then. So that was like the biggest letdown of my life at the time. I was like, Peyton Manning, Seahawks. I'm gonna be in for a great game, and then I'm gonna go to bed. No Bills, nothing. It's gonna be great. And the game sucked.
Yeah. I was rooting for Seattle in the NFC Championship game because I convinced myself that San Francisco's front four was the only thing that could stop Peyton at the time. Like because everybody knew that if you could get pressure on Peyton Manning without having to bring blitzes, that was the way to stop him. Because if you brought blitzes, he was just going to read the blitzes and figure out how to beat them. That's what Peyton Manning did. But I didn't realize that the back four of Seattle was basically the same thing as an elite front four, and that they could just basically guard them by themselves and take away all of the crossers and everything. And it was just, oh my God. All right, let's go back to talking about something else.
I'll tell you what, Seattle's back four right now is as close as it's been to that four since then, with Woolen and Witherspoon and then Quandre Diggs and a healthy Jamal Adams. That spot has been in flux. I still don't agree with that trade.
He's back next week, right?
Yep. Yeah, he'll be in the lineup. But I think from a Seahawks perspective, just one last thing on that topic is that even though we won the Super Bowl that year and we lost the following year to the Patriots on that horrible play, like the two games that I actually remember most between those 2 years were both NFC championships. Was the Richard Sherman tip pass to end it against San Francisco, and then the following year in overtime where we were down like 18 with 4 minutes left to go against Green Bay with the Jermaine Kearse walk-off touchdown. Like, those two particular plays like hold more like in the Seahawks Hall of Fame, memoir glory than I think many of the Super Bowl plays do.
This is relevant because we're going to talk about bad coaching later. That NFC Championship game by Mike McCarthy is the worst coaching performance in the history of the NFL, and you cannot convince me otherwise. They kicked 2 field goals from the 1-yard line with Aaron Rodgers, and then another 21-yard field goal on 4th and 1. It was the same thing as what I just talked about in the Broncos-Seahawks Super Bowl. They were up 9-0, and the Packers were dominating that game. And then...
the very first drive, Richard Sherman picked off Aaron Rodgers in the end zone. And then after that, I was like, oh, yeah, we're a Seahawks game. But then, as you said, literally after that first defensive drive, there was no way we should have won that game. I've never seen us get outplayed probably as poorly as we were in that game. It was so bad. The Packers should have won that game.
Can you imagine 4th and 1 twice in today's NFL? Like, the players would probably have a rebellion on the field if their coach said field goal both times.
Yeah.
Yeah,
crazy, in a regular season game, maybe not, but at that that stage in that venue, like, I'm with the players every time. You got to close the first one. I'll get like, let's play it safe, let's take our 3. But if you get there a second time, we're ending it right here, right now.
Yeah, and even what people don't remember is that the Packers got 2 different stops in the fourth quarter. 2 different stops in the fourth quarter.
Seattle had to recover an onside just to get back.
Right. Seattle was punting down like 15 with like 6 minutes left or something.
Classic PK.
And then McCarthy didn't run clock at all. And then, they still had to get an onside kick. It was, look, I mean, I'm a bit of a Rodgers truther when it comes to his talent. And that game, after witnessing Peyton get destroyed by the Seahawks, that was just, oh my God. That was unfortunate again.